Okay, good morning, guys. I hope you're all well. If you have any trouble hearing me, just let me know. This week will be a discussion tutorial where I will be discussing or giving feedback on certain groups that have already submitted as an example of the type of feedback that we'll be providing. If other groups watching this and I don't get to review your project in session, don't worry, I will still do the same review process, the way that I'll do it in the Word document, and I'll send it all back to you, hopefully by the end of this weekend, so that you can make the necessary changes. I just want to make it clear right from the get-go that I'm not singling out any group, and I'm not picking on groups or trying to humiliate anybody by doing this. This is purely just so that everybody can learn, and I'm just using yours as an example. You can take it as sort of an advantage that I'm giving actual vocal feedback, because there's certain things that I might forget to type, but I will be discussing here in the session. So please don't take it personally. Hopefully we can all learn from whatever is discussed today. So for majority of you, you're all new students, I believe, first year. And I just want to introduce you to the software that USB uses to check for plagiarism. Okay, plagiarism is a big issue, and it can discredit people's academic careers when they start to plagiarize. So that's why we try and emphasize on the stiff penalties that will be enforced if there's plagiarism. Okay, so the way Turnitin works is when you submit your project to a Dropbox, it then runs it through the software, and the software then picks out certain sentences or phrases or paragraphs that are directly lifted from another source. Okay, and then it gives you back a percentage, and the percentage lets you know how much the software believes you have plagiarized. Now for USB, the limit, the maximum that it can go is 15%. I think the maximum they'll accept is 20, but for engineering, the maximum we accept is 15%. So anywhere between 0 and 15% for your similarity index. Can you all see my screen? You're all able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this percentage number is the amount that the software believes you have copied directly from some other source. So this group down here, 2%, that's fine. 33%, that's definitely not okay. 12% is still acceptable. Okay, is that clear? So when we assess, we check first the similarity. If it's anything above 15, you get an automatic 0. So bear that in mind when you submit your final project. If it's anything above 15, you have gotten a 0. And there's no resubmission or anything like that, okay? So please make sure if you're taking information from another source, paraphrase, reword it, absorb the information, reword it, but don't directly lift sentences. And once we open up your, once we get this number, we can then go and check the feedback studio. Hopefully you can see my screen. Yes? Okay, this is just an example of another group, and it will highlight sentences where it believes have been copied from somewhere else. So in this case, these guys got a high plagiarism count from their literature review. Okay, 56% copied from another source. So if this was a final submission, this group would have gotten 0. You guys have access to this. You can go back and you can look at the similarity index and what sources have the highest amount of reported plagiarism, and you can make changes to your draft report. Okay, so hopefully you all have done this. If you haven't, I'm informing you now that that's something that you can do to try and bring down your plagiarism. Look where it says that there's plagiarism and then make the changes. Is that clear? Okay, so the example that I'll be using today is one of the groups, you have done a hospital boat. Okay. So I believe Ritik, Isoa, Blow, Bernard, this is your project. I'll use this as an example of the type of feedback that I'm providing. I hope you don't take it personally, anything that I say, and you take it all as constructive criticism. Before I begin, does anybody have any questions about the plagiarism way USP deals with plagiarism? Okay, great. So this project, this group has done a project to design a hospital boat that can house 3 staff and 3 patients. Now this is a plus project, which means we're expecting an extra level of detail, an extra level of work that these guys are supposed to put in to achieve that bonus mark, which comes with the plus. Okay, that's what the plus means. So this group has gone for a very demanding project, and I applaud them for doing that. Please, when you make your submission, state what tutorial session you belong to, as well as the project number. So if you belong to Friday 10 to 11, write Friday 10 to 11 somewhere underneath your project number, just so that it's easier for us markers to know which ones we have to mark, because we'll be marking the ones from our own tutorial sessions. Right, introduction. So all of you are supposed to start with an introduction. Not everybody has with their draft report, and that's fine, because I mentioned you can do the introduction right at the end. The most important things are problem statement and going forward. But introduction. Introduction is supposed to be the opening to your project, which lets the reader know what they're to expect by reading further into your project. Okay, so usually you start with what is it that you have to design? So what's your focus? In this case, a hospital boat. And then how have you as a group developed the design? So you talk a bit about the design process and the steps that you took and how you went from A to B, and finally the tools that you have used to help develop your design. So namely AutoCAD. Okay, introduction doesn't have to be a full-on page. It can be 1 or 2 paragraphs, can be 1 well-structured paragraph. I want to make it clear that the number of words doesn't impress us. It won't impress us, it won't impress your clients. The conciseness of your information or the clarity of your information is what impresses people. If you can get a point across very clearly in as little words as possible, then you have done a very successful project, because you've gotten straight to the point, you've delivered all the information and no beating around the bush. Okay, that's just a note for everybody, not necessarily for this project, but just for everybody to keep that in mind, that the number of words or the complexity of the words that you use, the big words and all, it doesn't impress anybody, especially if you use the words wrong. Okay, so my number 1 comment from the introduction is I felt like there was bits of irrelevant information. You guys started off by talking about the history of boats and what are boats. And I feel everybody at this stage in their life should know what a boat is. And to be honest, the history of how long boats have been around is not very relevant to the design process that you'll be following, unless you're going to be using designs from 6,000 years ago. Okay. All in all, I felt like you had good bits of information, but you just kept repeating it in each paragraph, talking about different types of boats and the materials used. And I felt like it was very repetitive through the paragraphs. I feel like you could have shortened these 4 paragraphs down into just 2, where you talk about the hospital boat, that you want to make it so that it caters for the COVID-19 pandemic. And then you just talk about the design process. Okay, guys, so that's my main comment about the introduction. Just simplify it. Is that clear? Ritik and group? Yes, no, maybe, below. Are you able to hear me? Okay. Okay, guys, just checking that you're able to hear me. I don't want anything to get lost in translation. If you get stuck somewhere or you're not quite understanding what I mean, please just let me know and I'll slow down and or repeat what I've just said. So problem statement. You started off very broad, and that is how I instructed you guys to start. You start with a very broad problem and then you narrow it down into the very specifics of the problem. So that's, you guys have started very broad and that's good. You may just want to check the grammar in certain places, like this sentence. I didn't quite understand your meaning. Since there is a lot of new cases being discovered, it has been brought up by the Ministry of Health that there is a lack of medication being distributed and used in health facilities and hospitals around the country. You may just want to check the grammar of that sentence. But at the end of your problem statement, my biggest problem was I wasn't sure what your exact problem was. It wasn't clear because you talked about distributing medical supplies, and then you talked about transferring patients from island to island and trying to get them. And then you talked about treating patients. So are you designing something to distribute medical resources, or are you making a boat that will transport patients, or are you making a boat that will have enough space to treat patients? You may just want to clear that up in your problem statement as to what is the exact issue. If it's all of the above, then close off your problem statement by saying that the boat or the design, whatever it is that you have to design, it has to be a boat that is able to both transport, cater for medical distribution, as well as treat patients. Yes, Mbulo. Sir, for the background review, I'll get there in a minute, Mbulo, don't worry. So design brief, very short. I like it. Just 1 or 2 sentences. It has to provide all the medications needed for the virus and also has to be environmentally friendly. Okay, so again, it says provide all the medications needed. Does that mean it has to be able to transport the medications, or does it have to be able to treat? Are you getting what I mean when I'm saying I'm not quite sure what's the problem here? I know COVID-19 is the problem, the general problem, but what is it that your design is trying to solve? Is it trying to solve distribution? Is it trying to solve the transfer of patients, or is it trying to solve the treatment? Is it trying to introduce more treatment areas, more treatment facilities? Design brief, I thought was done pretty well. Design criteria, I feel like you could have included a few more things. There are certain numbers here that you've mentioned in design criteria, like 700 to 900. Where have you got this value from? Where do you justify 700 to 900 kgs of weight? Is this carrying additional weight apart from the boat, or is it including the weight of the boat? Is this 700 to 900, 700 to 900 kgs of medical supplies, or patients and medical supplies, or staff, patients and medical supplies? You have to say where you get this 700 to 900 figure from. And I feel like a big criteria that you could have included is the size requirements. Okay, if we're treating COVID-19, we know the protocols. We're supposed to keep a certain amount of social distancing. We're supposed to keep a certain amount of distance between patient to patient so that there's no cross transfer, you know? And on a boat, that is the biggest issue. How do you keep patients apart from each other on a boat? And I feel like you could have included that in your design criteria and you didn't. So for me, that is a big, miscalculation on your part. So you might want to include the size requirements. Now, background research. I'm not sure if you guys hadn't started the background research yet, or you were still confused as to what to put in the background research. So below your question about the background review, do you have a question? You can unmute your mic and ask your question if you have a question. Okay, so right now, your background review, you have just talked about the area and sort of restated the problem statement. Okay, this is not a background research. Background research would have been looking at existing designs of hospital boats, looking at the COVID-19 protocols, and what are those certain protocols that you have to consider in your design. Those would have gone into your background research. You could have talked about the important components of a boat. You could have talked about the important functions of a boat. So a boat has to be stable, I'm guessing, if it's going to be for a hospital. So you have to look at the different designs of boats that are stable. You have many, many different designs of boats. You have fiberglass boats, barges, catamarans, yachts. They're all different configurations of boats. You could have looked at the pros and cons of each one of those boats, their design, their fundamental design, and which one of those you would have liked to use in your final design. Okay. So just talking about the place that you're looking at and sort of restating the problem is not a background research. You need to actually start looking at what already exists and what can we do that uses some of their basic ideas to solve our specific problem. Like right now, I don't know if there's any design out there for a hospital boat that is built specifically to treat COVID-19 cases. Now, I think your problem is a really, really good one and a very relevant and well deserving of double plus if you do it well. But if you're unclear as to the direction that you want to go in, then the flip side of having a double plus per project is it shows how little work you've actually put into it or how little understanding you have of the design process. Is that clear? So look at what already exists. What are the COVID-19 protocols that you will have to incorporate into design? Namely, the size restrictions, the amount of distance you have to keep between patient to patient. 3 patients, what's the minimum size that you'll be looking at? You have 3 patients, 3 staff members, that's a lot of people on a boat. Now, when you're designing a boat, you could make the boat huge, like a cruise liner. That's only six people and there's all the space in the world. But then you have cost restrictions too. So you might want to talk about the cost in your design criteria, and you say cost needs to be within budget, but you haven't mentioned what the budget is. Okay. And if you say the budget is $5,000, then we will ask, where did you get that $5,000 from? You would have to state that in your problem statement. Okay. We have to design this boat, but the government can only spare, say, $5,000 to invest in a prototype of this design. So we have to make our design fit within that budget constraint. Am I making sense? And this goes for everybody, not just for these guys, for everybody. If you talk about budget or you say a specific number in your budget, you have to justify it in your problem statement. Your problem statement has to be able to justify why you said a certain budget amount. Okay, is that clear for everyone? So this session will be recorded. And if you want to go back and re-listen to anything that I've said, feel free. I'll upload it and then send you all the link. So possible solution evaluation. This sentence is a good lead-in to the evaluation process because you talk about what your design should have. That's a good entry into the evaluation process, but it isn't an evaluation. Okay, you've just stated the design criteria in sentence form. After this comes your weighted decision matrix and all that kind of stuff, and your justification and all that. Now, I want to. This is specifically for this group now. Your possible solutions. We can't give you direct advice as to, okay, you should put this in your possible solution, you should design it this way, you should do it this way. Because at the end of the day, it's up to you guys to design it. But we have our own standard or our own understanding of the standard that these projects should be at. And if I'm honest, these are very nice drawings and all, but to me, they just look like boats that you've added extra seats in. Okay, I don't see any new design or any groundbreaking innovation. Are you getting what I mean? Because this boat here could be similarly used for fishing if it needed to be, or used for tourist purposes. Okay, there's nothing here that tells me, okay, this is a hospital boat. Now, if you guys decide to stay with these designs, that's fine. But just bear in mind that for me personally, I don't feel like this is up to the standard of a double plus project. And you may need to spend a bit more time or expend a bit more creativity in coming up with the ideas for your possible solutions. You have a very good problem. And I mean, not a lot of groups have such a well-defined problem or such a big problem to tackle. But the way that you've gone about designing the process and your creativity, I feel is lacking. So you may need to review your designs. So this method of feedback I'll do for all projects, not just the ones that I'll be demonstrating, but I'm doing it for all the different projects in all the different groups. So if once I send back the feedback and you're stuck or you don't understand what I mean by my comments, please feel free to contact me. I'm always available, or I try to be always available. If not, you can give me a buzz. And once you've made the adjustments, you can send it back to me and I can have another look. And if I'm happy or if I think you've addressed all the points that I've made, then carry on. But I want to be as much help as I can. So I'm not setting a deadline that you have to resubmit it. I'm saying if you want to resubmit, you can. Is that clear to everyone? And that goes for all my tutorial sessions. Other groups from other sessions, I'm not too sure about. It'll be up to your tutors. But for everybody who's part of my tutorial sessions, I will be happy to take a second look if you require. So this is my example for today. I will be trying to upload a video on formatting because I mean, these guys haven't referenced any of their information, and referencing is a big part. Also, basic things like formatting, like all of our paragraphs. Everybody pretty much in all projects has used align to the left, but for technical and scientific reports, we select justify. Okay. In saying that, we also have our fonts usually set to 12. And in general, we discourage the use of borders because sometimes printing, the borders don't come out even, or sometimes there's problems with the printers and borders get a bit muddied up. So we generally advise against using borders. Okay. How many more minutes do I have in this session? I can give some quick tips on how you might be able to start formatting. So have you all got experience with using with Word? Using MS Word? Okay. Okay, good. If you have experience, then great. I hope you're using it to do your formatting. But for those who don't, you have normal and your different headings up here, okay? Normal, you can just set your normal your normal format. So just click on normal. You can right click, go to modify, and then you can modify it here in here. So I'll set all of my normal tents to justify, set all the sizes to 12, and the font to Times New Roman. If I'm happy with that, then I'll click OK. And everything that's just normal text, body of the text, will automatically go to the normal setting, which I've just set. Okay. So just select all of your text and set it to normal. And you don't have to go through each paragraph trying to make the same adjustment. You can just adjust it once and then apply it to all. Okay, for subheadings, you have your different heading settings. So again, right click on heading 1, modify. We try and discourage the use of colorful headings. So we set it all to black. The largest size we usually recommend is size 14 for headings. And you can bold, underline, whatever you want. Italics is usually left for captions. So we don't usually italics things. And the headings are usually Calibri or Times New Roman. Okay. So, and you can set your paragraph spacing or your line spacing or your indent, all those kind of things. Click OK. And we can set each one of these major topics, the major titles, to heading number 1. Okay. There's also a numbering tool. So if you just go to lists and select this one, it'll automatically assign numbers to each one of your major headings. So introduction is 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. For subheadings, I don't think this project has any subheadings, but you can do the same for heading 2 as a subheading number 1, or heading 3 as subheading number 3, so on and so forth. And then when you're putting in your table of contents, we just can go to references, table of contents, and it'll give you the formats already putting the headings in the table of contents as well as the page numbers. So automatically generates a table of contents. Number for contents. So this is just a brief, one of the things you can do to try and speed up your formatting time. I'll do a more extensive video talking about referencing, captions, inserting figure numbers and figure tables, table numbers and and figures of tables, and all those kinds of things in a separate video, which I'll upload hopefully over the weekend. But yes, we only have 5 minutes left in the session. So if you can all type your type your ID numbers in the chat so that I can take attendance. Okay, guys, are there any questions before we end the session?